Everybody, thanks for being here today with me on For the Sake of the Argument with Abraham Aiyash, who's running for State Senate District 1. He had a lot of really important things to say, and I think one of the most important things that came out for me is when you're vetting who you're going to vote for, ask the hard questions. Are you taking PAC money? Is not the only way that they get money from DTE and these other corporate entities and utilities. They can take dark money that is not recorded anywhere. So I want to know who's taking APAC money, who's taking money from DTE, dark or otherwise. That's important to me because you know who I want my elected officials to be beholden to? Me. Have a great day and check us out on all social medias. Welcome, Abraham Aiyash, to For the Sake of the Argument. I'm so excited to have you today.
I'm glad to be here, Lori.
You're running for State Senate District number 1.
Yes.
Previously, you were 4 years in the Michigan House.
Yeah.
All right. I know the districts changed, but what area did you represent in the House, and what area are you going to represent in District 1 for your state Senate run?
So when I served in the Michigan House, I served 2 different districts because there was in the middle of a redraw. State Senate, it was House District 4 and 9, which included Detroit, Hamtramck, and the Detroit communities, some of the east side, parts of the west side, downtown, midtown, almost touching southwest. And then the new Senate district that I'll be running in includes almost everything west of Woodward on the Detroit Strip, south of Highland Park, goes all the way down to Wyandotte. So Ecorse, River Rouge, Lincoln Park, Wyandotte, and a significant chunk of Detroit.
Ecorse, my hometown.
It is your hometown.
Gosh, I didn't realize that before just now.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's exciting. All right, I have a lot of things to talk to you about after we're off air so you can do for my fellow Ecorse citizens.
Let's do it.
Knowing that you're going to be running in these communities, what are the biggest issues in your mind facing them?
I think when we look at where Democrats are and how we got here, oftentimes it's easy to say Trump, Trump, Trump. But the truth of the matter is I think folks lost a lot of trust in the Democratic Party because oftentimes we had elected officials or politicians that would run on a platform and govern on an entirely different one. And the one that they governed on was the one that was dictated by corporations and special interests. And I got to see that firsthand. You know, we had the first Democratic trifecta since Ronald Reagan, only the third one in the last 100 years. And to think we would have leveraged that moment to show the world when Democrats have power, we can deliver for working people, that we'll go after bad actors, bad corporate actors. We'll make sure that we're standing up for the folks that may not have the fancy men wearing the suits and ties to lobby on their behalf. We did not do that. While we accomplished a lot of incredible things, the reality is we left so much on the table, and it's partly because we focused on those that donated the money for the political campaigns rather than actually investing in building trust and continuing to build that trust with the working people. So we got to get back to the basics. You know, I talk about the Farmer Jack joy. If you grew up in Michigan, you knew the era of Farmer Jack, where
Every Saturday,
yeah, there was always a sense of community. People could afford to raise a family here. I think about my dad, came here with little English, went to high school off of Woodward, got a factory job, raised 8 kids, and is still working. This is his 54th year at Chrysler. I'm never going to call it Stellantis or FCA. It's always going to be Chrysler for me. But when you think about that opportunity that my dad had, and the folks that are coming into the same factory that my dad works at today, they don't have that same opportunity. You know, they'll be lucky if they can afford car insurance. They'll be lucky if they'll be able to afford the cars that they're even building, even with the employee discount. And they certainly can't figure out how they're going to retire with dignity because of the constant pressures of how much money it costs to live in the state. So we are tackling our campaign by going after 3 particular issues. Number 1, going after utility companies. In the last 20 years, our rates have gone up over 100%, and their stock price has gone up almost 270%. So I'm proposing a 5-year freeze on any rate increases from DTE to make sure that if they're really serious about how these data centers are going to bring all this money and all this opportunity for the state, then the working people of our state deserve a break. So anyone that lives in a consumer home, no rate increases for the next 5 years. The second thing is tackling auto insurance. 2019, we were told that we were going to finally see reductions in our car insurance. We've actually seen the opposite. Since 2019, prices have gone up 54% for people. You know, I'm paying several hundreds of dollars a month, and so many other people in Detroit are paying $300, $400, $500, $800 a month for their cars, which is insane. For many people, it's more than the car note that they're paying for. So when we look at what happened in the 2019 law, they eliminated what they called the use of a zip code, but the reality is it can still use census tract and territories.
Redlining.
And it's still redlining. It's redlining with a new name.
Right.
So figuring out, eliminating that, and then eliminating the use of your credit report. We said you can't use your credit score anymore, but it's like if I came to you, Lori, and said, hey, I'm not going to judge you based on your GPA, but I'm still going to look at your credit card.
Or sorry, your insurance
your
is
report
so
card.
high. Oh.
Yeah. And then I think the third one is childcare. It is incredibly expensive to raise a kid in Michigan. You're looking at tens of thousands of dollars a year for childcare. And we want people to be in the workforce. We want people to make the state thriving in terms of our economy. Then we have to make sure that those who want to grow families here don't have to make the difficult decision of, do I not work and raise a family, or do I work and then try to raise my family and use all my income to make sure that I'm raising that kid? So establishing a universal child care by taxing the rich. We can increase the corporate income tax to make sure that we are providing universal child care for every family in the state so that they can raise their kids. And I think if we are able to address those three issues, we are going to be able to earn the trust back of voters across the state. And hopefully people will finally believe us when we say Democrats can deliver.
I want to talk to you a little bit about DTE, but before, let's go back to where you're running. I grew up until I was 30 years old. I lived in Ecorse, Michigan. My dad lived there until he died. I went to school in Ecorse. I went to school in Wyandotte. I dated boys in River Rouge. I have a broad knowledge of those communities in particular, as well as Olive Downriver. And I have never lost touch with my friends and people that I love that still live there. It is so important that people like you, people that are running for office, whether Democrat or Republican, understand it is a struggle for people living in these communities. Maybe not as much Wyandotte, but I'm sure there's a portion of Wyandotte that struggles as well with putting food on the table, affordable housing. Do you know, I am a realtor, and I show people housing in Ecorse and Rouge and Lincoln Park and Melvindale quite frequently, even leases. And it is hard to find a lease below $1,500 a month. And that is often not someplace where you would lay your head at night. So housing insecurity, food insecurity, lack of insurance, whether it be car or medical insurance, it's a travesty. And you mentioned briefly about these data banks. I don't give a fuck how much DTE gives us as a credit. Be clear. I think Michiganders are never going to go for it because it is going to destroy our natural resources. So they can give us as much credit as they want. No one's buying it, I don't think. So let's talk about DTE.
Let's do it.
So much influence in Lansing, not just with Republicans, but with Democrats.
Oh, 100%.
So
any Democrat that tells you they're not moved by DTE is full of shit.
Yeah, and we're sick of it. We, the people, are sick of it. So you're running for office. What are you going to do about it? What can you do about it? Are you going to be impotent in Lansing, or are you going to be able to do something?
So I'll say this. When I first came to the Michigan House, it was shocking to me that I had been one of just 3 legislators that hadn't taken money from DTE, not a nickel. And when people say I don't take DTE money, I think we actually got to be very specific about what that question means. Are you taking PAC money is one question. Are you allowing DTE to spend what we call C4 dark money on behalf of your campaign is an entirely different question. And more often than not, every single legislator in the Capitol will take money from the utilities in that fashion.
The dark money route?
A 501c4, a 527. These checks are not disclosed. They're not reported. If you see the recent articles from the Detroit News, you see hundreds of thousands of dollars written to both Republicans and Democrats. And that money is not in this campaign finance reports that we all search on the Secretary of State's website. That is all funding that is funneled through these dark money accounts. And more Democrats than you think take that type of money.
How can we find out who they are? I mean, is there a way for a regular person to look this up or no?
Unfortunately not. We have a lot of really good journalists that are actually going through the IRS filings and trying to connect who owns Put Progress First, or who owns Michigan Matters, or who owns, rebuilding the economy. Like, these are all these well-to-do names that don't mean shit in terms of the actual substance of what they do. Oftentimes, they're just groups that are spending money on behalf of elected officials. And it's not explicit, vote for this or don't vote for that. It's more so, Lori Goldman is a great person. Thank Lori for her hard work. I'm not telling you to vote for Lori. I'm not telling you to support Lori. But what I am telling you is Lori Goldman is a person who's in politics, and she has a billboard on the freeway. Lori Goldman is a person in politics, and she has a Facebook ad. Lori Goldman is a person in politics, and she has a YouTube clip right before you watch your how to boil an egg the right way. So there's a bunch of those types of things.
How did you know?
Well, the data centers told me. But I think the other piece of this that's super important, when I came into the legislature, I was one of 3 legislators that hadn't taken any money from DTE. It was a stunning number to think about. And I wasn't proud. It's good to be on the right side, but it's not good to be on the right side alone. We have made progress. We now have over 20 legislators that have sworn off DTE money. And I think, and you see this year, people running for office, it's kind of like, I say DTE's is Michigan's APAC. It's the money no one wants.
20 out of, what, 200 and something? How many?
20 out of 148.
148.
Yeah.
Okay, it's still a low number.
It's still an incredibly low number.
Yeah.
And I proposed legislation when I was in the Michigan House to say regulated industries should not be engaging in money. And we copied this off of a Colorado law that said casinos who are regulated by the state cannot actually engage in political giving in any capacity.
I would hope not.
Yeah, it's a great idea, right? We need to do that with utilities. The reality is everything they can and cannot do is at the blessing of the state and the Michigan Public Service Commission. Yet they are spending more money than any industry in the entire state in terms of political lobbying and political spending with respect to campaigns. That has to end, because I will tell you, when we worked on the clean energy laws, which I was proud of, the conversation always came back to the utilities cannot be opposed to this. We have to get them to
so
neutral.
that was the filter that had to be clear.
It was always anything related to energy policy, the conversation always whittled down to, what will the utilities say? In Lansing, they used to say this, which is incredibly disappointing. You can't spell Democrat without DT and E, which is really, really sad that's sort of become the norm.
It's shameful.
It's incredibly shameful, because when you think about the 2021 or 2023 outages in the cold that we have today, folks were dying, literally dying, because of how freezing it was, and they did not have access to any power, let alone being able to turn on a space heater. They had nothing to plug it into. And oftentimes the utilities will tell us, well, we need to increase rates to invest in the grid. Well, let's talk about that for a second. 2 years ago, DTE submitted a rate hike of 10% for our gas and 10% for our electric. In that 10% rate hike, they calculated private jet travel for their executives as a part of the expenses for that 10% rate hike.
Monsters.
What the hell does that have to do?
Nothing.
What the hell does that have to do with you and me being able to afford our rates? How does that improve our grid so they can fly a private jet to their board meetings in Florida?
Sickening. More of the same old shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope people understand, when you're asking people that want your vote, Democrat or Republican, please ask them, are you taking any PAC or dark money?
And will you accept dark money to be spent in your elections?
Yeah, right. Because if they're going to put up a billboard or sponsor your site or something,
yeah,
that's
you
the
won't
same
know,
thing.
but they somehow found a high quality photo of you to be able to put, or high quality B-roll of you shaking hands and kissing babies. Like, wow.
Right.
Like, how on earth did they find that? And all of a sudden, there's these advertisements that are playing with your face and your videos, yet you had no coordination whatsoever. These people are full of shit.
I know, and if they start that low to begin with, God help us for when they get in office. I guess we've already seen that. So listen, your platform you mentioned has you have a policy to increase the corporate income tax to fund childcare. All right, that sounds great, but I don't think people understand, and I know this from conversations I have with people. Childcare, I raised my kids. I took care of them, or my mother came over. What do we need childcare for? We got along without it. Explain what a blight it is for especially women of color who are raising children single-handedly to be able to have a job.
So I think about my family. I told you 8 kids in one house.
Yeah.
My dad had one job. He didn't own a small business. We didn't own a corner store, a gas station. He didn't have a rental property. He had one job, one W-2 he was getting from Chrysler. And we were fortunate enough to never go hungry. We always had what we needed. Now, did we live a lavish life? Did I get to buy Hollister when I was a young kid? No. We had to settle for Aeropostale if we got lucky. And which is fine. But I think about folks who want to work those same types of jobs. It is insane to me that we have elected officials that still don't recognize $15 is barely the baseline at this point for a minimum wage. And you saw Democrats...
It's not near the baseline. 26 and change is what has been determined should be the baseline.
Yet last January, we had Democrats and Republicans in Lansing vote to gut one fair wage. Why?
Oh, I know. And I've discarded those that did.
As you should. Now, you look at that with respect to wanting to raise a family. Everyone talks about we need to grow our population. Michigan needs to be a place where you can grow your talent, grow your family, all these shticks. And we had a whole growth population to talk about this. It's not a complicated formula. If you have a place that is affordable, if you have a place that has good schools, and you have a place that allows workers to raise their families and get around safely with reliable modes of transit and transportation, then you're going to have a successful society. It's really not that complicated. And on top of that, you're going to have a society that's a little bit less hateful and a little bit more welcoming, because now folks are not trying to find a boogeyman to point at to say, this is the reason why I'm... Yeah. So childcare is one of the biggest inhibitors for people to starting families, because they say, if I have to raise my kid, not only do I have to worry about formula and making sure that they have health care and making sure that they have diapers, I have to make sure that I'll be able to supervise their time, because you can't leave a 2-year-old alone, right? But you also don't want to throw them in a place where there's 50 or 60 kids slapped into a box for 6-7 hours a day when there's fear about safety and there's just overcrowding. So childcare has to be the mechanism that we give people the opportunity to say, if you want to either, one, be the childcare provider. If there's someone in your local community that says, I'm willing to take care of 5 or 6 kids in the neighborhood, they deserve compensation for that.
Right.
The second piece, though, is also it allows women of color, other community members to get back into the workforce. Because oftentimes it is the women that unfortunately have to say, we are pulling back from the workforce. We're going to stop our work to be able to go back and take care of the children that we want to raise, because you can't work 9 to 5 when you don't have anyone to watch that child for during that 9 to 5. So it's going to build a care economy, one that allows people to actually get jobs because of this, but it's also going to allow people to go back into the workforce that left. And if we address this issue, we're going to finally start seeing people come to Michigan because it's an attractive space. And New Mexico showed us that it's possible. The oil and gas industry that loves to extract a lot of that from the land in New Mexico agreed to pay for some of those childcare programs, and now you have universal childcare in the state of New Mexico. There's no reason why we cannot do it in Michigan.
It just takes a shifting of the pie.
And I will tell you,
the resources.
The shifting of the pie always gets shifted for the billionaires.
Of course.
When it's time to give money to GM or these big battery plants, we'll move heaven and earth to get that money to them. But somehow you say, hey, let's move that money to working people. Now it becomes a game of economics, and we got to crunch the numbers.
I know.
But nobody crunched the numbers when we gave Goshen and GM and Ford billions of dollars to create $17 an hour jobs. Nobody batted an eye when we said, hey, let's give Dan Gilbert $700, $800 million so he can create a new playground where the Renaissance Center is. Well, why don't we use that money to invest in universal child care? $2 billion would be enough to fund every child in the state of Michigan. And we can do that by raising the corporate income tax, which, by the way, is one of the lowest corporate income taxes in all of the Midwest.
I know. It's kind of bullshit. We, the people, want it and need it. And we don't want to let the few that govern us make those decisions for the wealthy anymore. Let's talk about something horrific that happened recently. The murder of an innocent person by ICE and whatever the other organization was. What are we going to do about this? This is the illegal immigration operations that are going on. They're not even presenting warrants anymore. They're using some flimsy excuse and battering doors down. They're shooting people. I was half tongue in cheek saying, the shit has hit the fan when they're shooting white women and white men. So, we've reached, I guess, a new low. I think white people might wake up now and understand we're on the menu too. So what can you do? We've heard from a lot of people in that chair. They don't support ICE. They don't want to let ICE into Michigan. But I worry sometimes about the impotency in Lansing to keep us safe and to protect our First Amendment, Second Amendment, all of our rights. What are you going to do?
So, when you talk about ICE being in Michigan, ICE is already here, right? They took a high school student from Western High School, which is actually not far from here, Western International, Morba, who the day before Thanksgiving, ICE took him, locked him up, and he's been locked up until last week. We raised $10,000 to get him out, but it's insane to think about. Here's a guy that had no criminal record, no history of any crime, no warrant for his arrest, a kid who got taken by ICE and was held captive for 3 months. Was he picked up
at school, at high school?
He was picked up on his way out of home. It was the day before Thanksgiving, and he was held in a for-profit prison, the Geo Company, which loves to get involved and make investments in these for-profit prisons.
Right, and that's why they're upping the quotas of how many people they want taken off the streets every day.
Yeah, so $10,000 for a high school kid is insane, right? But we raised it, got him home. But
Wasn't
we know
he a
that
rapist or murderer?
nothing.
High school kid? He wasn't.
No.
Wait,
he
didn't kill someone?
He wanted a MacBook for graduation. That was his crime. And what's frustrating is oftentimes people are saying, "Oh, well, ICE is not here yet, so it's not our problem." ICE has been here. ICE has taken several high school students. ICE has taken family members away. This is a harsh reality that we have to contend with. It's not a matter of when ICE will be here. ICE is already here. The problem that we have is there's a lot of spinelessness coming from the federal government. So just like we had the government shut down and the whole point about Democrats were going to not vote to give Republicans the votes, well, we have an opportunity to do that in this upcoming vote happening where will the Senate Democrats say, we're not giving you a single vote to continue DHS and ICE funding? And it'll be interesting to see, will Chuck Schumer give us this charade where 20 senators will come out and say, we're not going to do this, and they're going to give us the same usual 7 or 8 scapegoats that they always do. And there's a group of them, and these guys will oftentimes switch. It's Dick Durbin today, it's John Fetterman tomorrow.
Right. It's an inside game.
Yeah, it's bullshit, and you got to call it out. And I think if Chuck Schumer cannot control his caucus and say all of us will stand united against this fascist regime, then get him the hell out of power. He is useless and feckless in this moment. As far as what can the state do, Senator Mary Cavanaugh and Stephanie Chang introduced bills right now to say they must issue warrants. We have to add protections to places of worship and schools and hospitals so that we're not looking at places where folks go to get help or get better. Now they're choosing or opting not to do that out of fear of saying, I don't want to go to the hospital and then end up getting taken out in chains by ICE agents because I decided to say my pancreas was hurting or it may have an appendix issue or my children are sick. So the truth of the matter is so much has to come from the federal government and the folks leading us in that charge. And Democrats in the House and Democrats in the Senate have to show up with the urgency. But also, folks cannot be afraid. I know the death of Alex and the death of Renee were terrible, but that they want us to believe that our ability to push back and our advocacy doesn't matter. And I still want to be hopeful in this country and that people can still come together and push back. And I use the story of Morba, who we came together and raised money. I posted a video for him, and shout out to Distill Social for sharing it. In 12 hours, we were able to raise his bond. And now he's able to come home, and we're finally going to get him that MacBook that he wanted. But those are the type of stories that we want to keep uplifting. And Alex was out there. Alex was an ICU nurse. He probably was making good money. And he was shot and killed. He was executed by an ICE agent because even in the work that he does, where he says, "Hey, I'm doing fine." And oftentimes we hear people do this. They say, "We're okay. We don't want to rock the boat because we're safe and we're okay." Alex was probably never going to get stopped by ICE. And he had a job that probably was paying him a decent quality of life. So if he was willing to go out and do those things and fight against this fascist, racist, incredibly hateful, and unqualified law enforcement agency, if you want to call it that, then why the hell are folks not going to be able to stand up and say, this is our moment to speak up and stand out too?
I know, and there are assholes out there, some of which I know, and I'm sorry to say this, that say, well, that's what you get for going where you don't belong. You know?
Yeah, but then those
mean,
same assholes will complain when they don't have the Hispanic woman cleaning the hotel rooms after when they go check into the Marriott. It's not clean enough. Well, these people are doing the things that you don't want them to do. And I hate to always measure someone's value based on the economic output that they provide, because I think human beings are human beings and they deserve dignity at the baseline.
That's how society rates people.
Right. But if we want to play that game,
yeah,
all right, you can't complain about shitty customer service in the places that you go to when the people that are willing to do that work, you're comfortable with them being taken away, locked up, and treated like not even animals. We Americans treat dogs and cats with a little bit of respect. They treat these people like bugs and cockroaches,
yes,
and rodents. And
right.
if you are going to say that, then that type of mindset is incredibly disgusting. And if you're going to lean into your faith as the reason why you do that, you know, the Jesus Christ that I know, the Prophet Muhammad that I know, those are not the people that told us what is happening today and how people are moving today, are the ones that we want to be proud of.
A lot of people use their religion as a cudgel. They beat their wife in the morning and they go to pray in the afternoon. So, you know, we know who you are. All right. The Michigan legislature, whether it's the whole legislature or Democrats in Congress, have they done enough to curb the abuses of the Trump administration? You know, we hear a lot of things, and I hear a lot of things, you know, being affiliated with Femmes for Dems and all this other stuff. And a lot of people are calling out Democrats for trying to get along with Trump, not doing enough, not speaking up, not being radical enough when he is being extremely radical, you know, wrongly. And other Democrats say, hey, don't rock the boat. Let's not call each other out. This is the time we have to get together. But I think that we're in this place right now because we fucking laid back and let our leaders make decisions that didn't turn out.
Yeah. You know, I often said this in Lansing. When we tried to talk about bipartisanship, it usually ended up with bullpartisan shit. And it was because our elected officials wanted to put the politics of decorum ahead of the politics of dignity. And it was more important that we were respectful to one another than working to build policies that were respectful of the people who elected us in the first place. I'd rather not offend the people. You know, it's almost like The Great Gatsby, where everyone is sitting in these rooms, and after you finish your yelling and shouting and on the House floor, you go and you have a dinner with a nice steak and a glass of wine with a lobbyist who's giving you $10 but giving the Republican $50 in terms of political spending. And it's like, oh, we're all here because we care about our communities, right? That's fine. You can believe that. But you can go to the gym every single day. But if you're not lifting any weights, what the hell is the point of you going to the gym? To say that you went to the gym?
Yeah, photo op.
Similarly, what are we electing these people for? And oftentimes it is this politics of decorum that we try to prioritize because we think that it's still going to dignify the position that we're in. But it's coming at the expense of the indignity of so many people that we were elected to represent. So yeah, it is a problem that Trump and Republicans don't give a flying fuck about the type of power that they want to leverage and at whose expense they don't care, as long as they're leveraging that power for what they want and for the billionaires that they are pushing for. But I'll say this too. When I hear people like Hakeem Jeffries say, you guys are going after your billionaire donors. Well, so you're telling me you have no billionaire donors that are dictating the message? Let's stop pretending. The reason why people don't trust, the reason why despite Republicans being in such a shitty place terms of what they've delivered and what they didn't deliver, that Democratic approvals are still so low is because people don't believe our party leadership. When our party leadership says we're going to stand up to the billionaire class, they know that these people are still selling the corporate game when they're in those rooms. We lost every demographic except black women, shifted to the right in 2024. Yet you have consultants and you have the DC political class still telling us it was this group of people that helped elect Trump. It was this group of people that stayed home. Give us something to inspire to have people come out and vote. Zoran Mamdani, good friend of mine, proved that in this last year. When you give people a politics of aspiration that is intentional and believable because
and
inclusive because it represents, I believe, when he says he's going to fight for the working class, because he's not schmoozing with the billionaires. He's actually going out in the streets and talking to people. That is how you win the trust of people back. And talking about things in abstracts, you're going to rebuild the economy. What the hell does that mean? How many years have we been rebuilding this economy?
Or come up with better health care. Yeah.
Yeah.
A long time.
We're going to fight forever. Like, what does that
No,
actually
it's all
mean
bullshit.
for people?
If you can't see that now, then
Yeah.
go breathe in a mirror and see if you're alive. Coming back to your district, you have another competitor in the primary for this Senate District number 1. I hope I say his name right. Justin Onwenu. What makes you the best choice for Senate District 1?
Well, I think there's, I'm sure there's going to be other people that will jump in the race, but I will tell you that when you think about consistency in principles and how I've led, I would say that I'm proud to look at the record when I ran 4 years ago or 6 years ago. What I ran on then and what I run on now is consistent. How I led in terms of the work that I did in Lansing, staying away from the corporate influence. So many people will say that and then end up getting folded in. I continue to speak up, even when they told me it was a bad mistake. When folks said you should not be so public on calling out the genocide, I made sure to say that to hell with any political calculations. When we see right, we call out what's right. When we see wrong, we call out what's wrong. But also I will say that we are going to be a campaign that will continue to uplift working people, and we've addressed the concerns that people want. We're launching our campaign on the issues that we've been aggregating over the last couple of years in terms of talking to people. The consistent complaints people have is it is expensive as hell in Michigan, and utilities are killing us, auto insurance companies are killing us, and it's hard to raise a family in this state.
Food costs are killing us.
Food costs are killing us too, right? But I'm not going to lie to people and say that, I'm going to lower your grocery prices. The truth of the matter is there is no easy solution to lower grocery prices, right? I can't tell you that there's a policy or a law or an initiative that I can implement to bring down the cost of eggs and bread. But what I can tell you is we can reduce the cost of these things in an actual tangible way so that you can then use the money that you're saving from there to be able to afford those groceries, which are expensive as hell.
Point taken.
So I'll be the candidate in the state senator that's going to go after big corporations, whether it's price gouging, stopping AI pricing in our Delta apps and our grocery stores. We're going to continue to stand up to make sure that we expose what corporate profits have been like at the expense of people not being able to afford things, highlighting that very succinctly. But also, I'm proud to say that I still don't meet with these utility lobbyists and these insurance lobbyists that are continuing to poison the minds of so many people that get elected. And that's going to be a consistent message in the way that we run.
We're going to go into the lightning round, but before we do, I just want to say something to people out there. We're not going to get into it because we don't have time, but term limits, everybody says, we should have term limits. With term limits, lobbyists love it because it gives them a job forever. If we don't have term limits and we vote appropriately, you can get rid of people you don't want. But with no term limits, lobbyists become less of an evil.
They wait you out, right?
Yeah.
I would say the best analogy I can give you is every Lansing legislator is like a carton of milk. And if they don't like this particular carton of milk, they're just going to wait for you to expire, and then they're going to wait for the next carton of milk to come in. Mm-hmm. And term limits are not helpful when you have corporate influence in politics
No.
so poisonous and so obvious in the way it influences
Right.
our politics. Decisions are made based on who has the most money in the moment, and it's incredibly frustrating that so many politicians continue to accept that. Oftentimes you say, well, we have to work with what's real. So we didn't have to ask that question when we gave billions of dollars in corporate incentives. You know, the
Right.
SOAR fund is an example. This was supposed to be this huge economic tool that we were going to use to bring back jobs. I was one of 5 Democrats that voted against the creation of SOAR. 5.
Mm-hmm.
Insane. Yusuf Rabi, Abdullah Hammoud, Cynthia Johnson, who stood with me and said, we're not going to support the creation of this corporate slush fund. And it moved. Billions were pumped into it. The jobs that were created, shit.
Yeah.
And this is a bipartisan idea. More Republicans and Democrats came together and made this law. How many jobs were made?
So it was a stupid law.
Yeah.
You were right. They were wrong.
Right.
Okay. All right. Let's go into the lightning round real quick.
Yeah.
And you know what? I want to apologize. We're in a 100-plus-year-old building, and it is so cold in here I can't feel my fingers anymore.
Oh my God, me too.
I'm going to blame DTE for that too.
That's no problem with that.
Quick answers. Despite these dark times, what excites you the most about the future of politics?
Seeing how many people are stepping up, what Zoran was able to inspire in New York, and what Denzel McCampbell was able to inspire on the west side of Detroit. You could just name it. There's a new generation of people stepping up and not using the old playbook. I think that's hella exciting.
Okay, cool. You publicly celebrated the wins of the New York City Mayor, Mamdani, and the Detroit Mayor, Sheffield. What did those wins mean to you?
I think it gives people an opportunity to feel like politics can be different. And it's not just about identity. It's about the ideas and the values and vision that you come with. And this is the moment for that. And if there's any time to say the old playbook did not work and it will not work moving forward, it is now. Like, fuck the old Democratic playbook. It did not work.
For a long time.
Corporate capitulation does not lead to community building. It does not lead to trust. And this is the moment where we can say, hey, none of it worked. It led us to fascism. Now we can move a new way forward.
I like it. Okay. Give me one unexpected thing that people should know about you. But before you do, I want to remind you, I've known you now 10 years. I think I met you through Michigan United.
Yeah, good times.
And you were so young then, you still had your mother's milk on your lips. But you still look so young now. So 10 years, unchanged, but more dynamic with more experience. So go ahead, tell us something exciting that we don't know about you.
Oh, exciting. Okay. I mean, this is probably like just a nerd thing. I love Pirates of the Caribbean.
Really?
It's my favorite movie series of all time.
How many times have you watched 1 or 2 or whatever there are?
I've watched the entire series in one sitting 3 times.
Okay.
That's like all of them. Dead Men Tell No Tales, which is the worst movie. But Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Trying to think of the other names. I'm blanking on them. But it's one of the best movie series of all time. I think Johnny Depp is such a good actor in that series. But I've born and raised in Michigan my entire life, and I will tell you what got me into politics. And you don't realize this in the moment, but my dad worked at Chrysler and still does. In 2009, he got a pink slip like everyone else did. And I remember when he was told he was laid off, my parents told me to go to sleep. I went upstairs, but I listened to their conversation. And it was the first time in my life that I saw the man who I thought was the most incredible story of my life, someone who came here with no English and raised 8 kids and brought 4 of them here, had 4 more here. I was like, this man's like incredible, right? Took care of his parents back home. First time in my life, I sensed that he felt powerless. And that for me, in hindsight, feeling where this was a man who built so much dignity for himself and his family, was going to be stripped of that because of one corporate decision.
Right.
That ability for someone else to strip someone else of their agency is something I don't want anyone else to ever experience. So when people ask me why I got into politics, right, working on the Obama campaign was a huge inspiration, but it's really thinking about the politics of indignity that festers in so many aspects of people's lives. And all of these decisions are because of bad policies pushed by corporate greed. And if we elect people that are willing to fight back against it, government can be the agent of change that will actually make people's lives better. And it should be. That is the whole point of government.
Yep.
Is we regulate bad actors, we implement laws to go after the worst common denominator of society, and then we uplift people through opportunities. And if this is America, where it's supposed to be the place of possibilities, then our government has to be the thing. America was founded because of our government, right? That was the idea. This country was established not by a shared language, not by a shared culture, but because we had an idea of a democratic system. And the democratic system was based in a government of the people and by the people. And we've heard that cliche so many times, but that is the purpose of the American experiment, is a government that reacts and responds to the will of the people. And oftentimes, if we continue to go down this road, people will just fall into a politics of despair. And America's a place of contradictions, but while we see the horror of what's going on with ICE, I think we see the hope with how many people still look out for one another.
And I hope that you're right. And on that note, Abraham Aiyash, I want to thank you for being here on For the Sake of the Argument, and good luck in your race for State Senate District 1.
Thank you, Lori. Always a pleasure.